Hello, and everybody. Welcome to another episode of the One Amazing Life podcast, a podcast for teens by teens. Boy, we are excited today. We are going to be kicking off our special Easter episode. And my name is Chris Stewart. I am one of your co-hosts for this show. As always, I am joined by my main man, my best friend, and my compadre in this business, my other co-host. His name is...
Hey, it's Jamie here. I'm glad to be here talking about Easter with all the friends. This is going to be a good show, Chris. And Chris, I also just, I got to keep the habit going. You are wearing a wonderful vest today with what looks like a silver tie. Is it silver?
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, Jamie. I'll tell you, I'm excited as we go through this kind of tough time around the world right now. This is the coronavirus time, and a lot of us are going through some stuff. I have on my New Orleans Saints tie, matching with my New Orleans Saints pin, because I remember back when Hurricane Katrina hit and how the coming together of the community was such an uplifting part, when you could just see God's work in the city of New Orleans and how he brought that city back from like such a tough time. And we're going to do that again now. And I'm just using this as a symbol of hope today for everybody. So thank you for noticing.
Love it. And I think I even heard something about a quarterback from that town giving like $5 million or something crazy like that.
He did. Drew Brees. He gave a $5 million donation to help out with the coronavirus and with all the people basically laid off from work. New Orleans is a big music and food town. So a lot of the people that live there are either musicians or they work in the restaurant business. So when something like this happens, everybody's just out of work. When there's no people to come hear the music or eat the food, you know what I mean? A lot of people go through a tough time. So that was very cool of him to step up. So Jamie, are you ready to introduce our esteemed guest for today's show?
I am ready, and I think it'd be awesome to let all these guys introduce themselves. So let's get started with how about the man who likes to skate the most? We'll do that guy.
Hey, what's up? I'm Ben. I'm in 12th grade, and I like to go to the beach.
I'm Matt. I'm in 11th grade. An interesting thing about me is that I play drums.
All right, thanks, Matt. That sounds pretty good. Let's go to our last guest. Introduce yourself.
What's up, guys? I'm Ezra, and I'm in 11th grade, and I think I've gained about like 6 pounds since this quarantine thing has started. I've just been eating a lot.
Now, you also sound a little sick right now, Ezra. What's going on with that? Are you think you got a touch of the virus here, or what's happening?
I kind of woke up like 30 minutes ago. So usually when I wake up, I have like this kind of stuffiness, but it usually goes around like in an hour or so. So I think I'm fine.
Well, good. It's nice to have you all back on the show. Thanks again for really stepping up and helping us out celebrate this Easter episode. And so anyway, guys, we're kicking off talking about Easter, man. Boy, so much goes on with this particular celebration, let's say, with there's the death, and then there's the rebirth of Christ and all these things that go along with it. I'd like to kind of start off though a little bit smaller and just kind of go with Ben. What's a tradition in your family around Easter?
Around Easter time, I used to wake up and go to my neighbor's house, and they'd have like a bunch of eggs all like along this like hillside thing that all the like neighborhood kids could like go and like hunt eggs and stuff. It was super fun.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's like, it's weird, huh? Like when we're younger kids, and we don't really understand the true meaning of Easter. Pretty much we think Easter is just maybe some like eggs and jelly beans and it's kind of the candy, the chocolate bunnies and things like that we put a meaning to Easter, but it's not really what it's all about, right? Matt, what was your Easter like as a child? What would you guys do as for like tradition? Was there anything special you guys would do? Or
I feel like it was pretty normal. We'd usually go to service, and then we'd wake up and like there'd be a trail of like jelly beans and candy from our room into the living room, and then we would like look around for like the eggs. So they would always like hide at places and stuff, and then we'd get like baskets. and then we go to service. I guess that's pretty normal, maybe.
Yeah, no, totally, man. I dig it. Ezra, what about you, man? What was happening in your family? Like kind of when you were growing up is on Easter Sunday, what would go down?
We live like a 2-minute walk from this park, and like every Saturday before Easter, they'd have this like huge Easter egg hunt, and like where all the kids from the neighborhood would just come, and they would like hide eggs over the park. So that's kind of what we as a family would go to like the day before Easter. And usually on Easter, we would go to church, obviously, and then we would have probably like a special lunch after to celebrate it.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. That was the same for us. We would do a little thing for the kids in the morning, and then we'd all go to church, and then there would be some kind of special lunch, usually with family or a bunch of friends or something. I don't know. Usually for whatever reason, for us, it always consisted of usually like a ham or something. We'd have some kind of like roast or something that was kind of an Easter meal or whatever. Now, Ezra, I'm going to go back to you. Tell me, when was like the first time you really started to kind of understand the significance of Easter from a faith-based point of view?
I'd say like pretty early in my life. I couldn't give you like an exact age, but like my parents were super good at just explaining things to me, and I kind of just from that point on understood it pretty well. And yeah, I guess just at like an early age.
Oh, cool. So, Matt, same question for you. When was it that you really started to identify what Easter meant to you? You know, like beyond Easter candy and chocolate bunnies and social media posts and Easter bunny. Like, when was it that you understood the true meaning of Easter, and how did that impact you?
I don't know exactly, but it was probably some day in Sunday school when they're talking about it, like actually thinking about the story, not just like listening to it and being like, oh yeah, whatever. It was probably during like Sunday school.
Now, what was your kind of identification with Easter Sunday services, Matt? You know, typically it's a big kind of, it's almost like, right, we have Christmas where we're celebrating, you know, the initial birth of Christ, and then we have Easter, right? And so like both of those services typically seem to be, I don't want to say jam-packed, but you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of sometimes newer people that they kind of do a bigger presentation, right? There's a little bit more things like that. What was your like excitement around that, or was there any?
I don't know if there's any like particular excitement. It's just like you're going to church. It was always like really hot, and it was always, we always did it outside, so it was like a little special, and you can like dress up a little bit more than you usually would.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I don't even think dressing up was an option on Easter Sunday. If I remember correctly, Mom would have the outfit picked out for me, and it would be something that back in those days I wouldn't necessarily want to wear. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be my usual T-shirt and jeans or whatever I was wearing. It would usually be a dress shirt or something, and I would complain about it.
Yeah, Chris, for me, that was my whole experience too. When I was a kid, I would my parents would go buy like a new fancy outfit for me, but just for Easter. Like it was the Easter outfit. It usually consisted of some uncomfortable shirt, some pants I had to wear a belt with, and then some kind of a little clip-on tie that had the little hook thing. You know, you just clip that thing on your neck, and then I had to wear usually fancy, uncomfortable shoes. And when I was a kid, I had a pair of penny loafers where you get a little penny and slip them in the front of the shoe. I don't know if you remember those. That was a thing back then. So, yeah, that was kind of my whole Easter outfit.
Now, Ben, what about you? What's like? I want to take me back to when you start identifying, you know, the resurrection of Christ. What does that bring up for you emotionally, right? Like what kind of hope did that give you? Or what did you kind of identify with when you started to really understand the true story of Easter?
Well, my parents didn't really raise me necessarily with Christianity. I did that on my own. Once I started to understand it, like when I was getting into like middle school and like actually understanding that it wasn't just like an Easter egg hunt, I guess I started to understand that like it was, I don't know, just more important, and it like gave me hope that like I don't know, like made me happy, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely it does. Now, Ezra, what would be a message that you would want to tell the world about Easter, about what your relationship is to Easter nowadays, since I mean this podcast is broadcast all over the world. What's something that maybe people aren't familiar with that you could kind of offer as a message of hope to them?
I know there's like, including my friends and like people around the world, there's a lot of people like hesitant, I guess, to believe in the word of Christ and all that stuff. But kind of like the Easter message to me was that at first I saw that my parents told me about this guy who just was dead and then resurrected, and it kind of gives me hope that like, oh, Jesus can do all things, even like come back from the dead, and reassures my hope of like, is he real or not, stuff like that.
Absolutely. Now, in the whole process, right? When Jesus died on the cross, what was your initial emotions around the way that Jesus was treated?
Back then, I probably didn't understand why or like any reasoning. It's just like crazy what happened. And I don't know. Back then, it probably didn't bring up that much emotion besides just like, dang, that really sucks. But like, it's cool that he died on the cross for us and then like came back. But now, like thinking about it, it's so much more crazy than that. Like, it just brings so much like you can like physically feel hurt just thinking about like what happened. I guess now that I know exactly what happened, I guess that's kind of the emotion that comes in when I think about it. It's like physical hurt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's so key, especially with this week and all the things that happen in Holy Week and with Palm Sunday. We start and get into that is the fact of that, wow, like we feel that much pain this many, years later. Like, what was the actual process, right? I think that really, as you do get older, it really starts to make more sense. And, I don't know, for me, it always brings me closer to Jesus and just the amount of sacrifice that he went through. Now, Ben, going back to you, not being raised necessarily with this story, like when you started to understand it, what ray of hope, I guess, did that give you when you saw the process, right, of like the humiliation that Jesus went through, like the persecution, the betrayal by his like closest friends, let's just say. And now that you understand the story, how does that relate to your relationship with God?
It makes me sad that they could like do that to someone, just not just someone like Jesus Christ. I feel like it draws me closer because like the fact that he would do that for like me and like everyone around us like makes me feel better.
No, I think you said it all right. It brings you closer. That's it. Like when you understand what that suffering was like, it's like no matter what we go through down here on earth and as human beings, it's like we know that he understands that suffering, right? That's really where his love comes into us and really, I won't say gives us freedom, but it really makes us understand just how great his love is for us, at least, in my humble opinion. So, Jamie, I want to ask you a question. Coming from, a very Christian background, your father was a pastor, you became a pastor. Can you give us a little summarization of the actual process of Easter for maybe some of our listeners that aren't necessarily familiar with the story of the crucifixion and then the resurrection, so people can kind of understand what we're talking about here?
Yeah, it's interesting because in the Gospels we have different accounts, different kind of pieces of the story that you kind of have to push all together into one pile. But really, John, like half of the book of John is Holy Week and beyond. So if you look at it, which is a lot, I mean, there's a lot of teaching on everything that happened just in the last week of Christ's life. So basically for us, though, when we look at the crucifixion and the resurrection, the crucifixion we celebrate happened on a Friday night. He gets betrayed the night before in the middle of the night and then taken away, and then has these trials that are done for him that seem to be false. And there's multiple of those because it couldn't just be the Jewish people would have to take him and decide to put him to death. But it ends up being multiple stages where not only is Jesus shamed and humiliated, he's also teaching people through the whole thing. As that happens, they end up beating him multiple times, and that in and of itself is a pretty powerful thing just to listen to that story and to hear just the physical agony that Jesus went through. He was put up on a cross, which was a typical Roman way of killing someone. And it had a couple purposes to that they would put people up on the cross. One because it was shameful. So it was showing that this is a person who was shamed. And I think we forget that the cross he wasn't elevated on a cross to stand out or somehow because he was a super important person. He was put on a cross because that brought shame to him, or was supposed to, at least. That's what the Romans would think. And it was also supposed to assert sort of this Roman dominance over the people of Israel. And so Jesus was put on a cross. While he was on the cross, he even said some things that are, one of the most amazing things Jesus ever said happened on the cross when he turned to the criminal who was next to him, and he said, "Surely today you will be with me in paradise," which is a pretty incredible thing that Jesus gave this man, this assurance of salvation, this assurance that he would be with him. Even as he's nailed to a cross, which is a pretty incredible thing. As he's on the cross, he ends up dying and giving up his spirit. It says he was put into a tomb, and he stayed in that tomb overnight. Now, they say 3 days, so it was like a Friday night, I guess, where he was put into the tomb, right? And then he's in there, and then he's in there on all Saturday, and then it was Sunday morning, early in the morning, that 2 women came to make sure that, just to kind of check and make sure that everything's okay. They show up and the tomb is open and there's an angel, and it gets kind of crazy. And so from there, all of a sudden, they're like, where's Jesus? We don't know. And that's when we celebrate Easter. We celebrate the fact that Jesus is missing, which is kind of a weird thing to celebrate. But that's how we do it. So that's kind of a real quick recap of Good Friday into Easter, which is what we're celebrating or what we're talking about today.
I love it. Thanks so much, Jamie, for that. That was a great description, a great summarization. And, and that's kind of where I want to jump into right now with you guys is, Ezra, coming up, we have Easter Sunday coming up. We would be celebrating the resurrection of Christ. We would be celebrating with our brothers and sisters in Christ. It'd be a big day of celebration, and there's all these things. But now, because currently we're all under this kind of quarantine around the world because of the coronavirus, we're going to have to be celebrating at home. So what is that like for you? I mean, what is it bring up any animosity? Does it bring up sadness, frustration? And then what are you going to do as a special, kind of celebration at your own home?
I'm definitely going to feel sad, just and also a little weird because this has never really happened before. We've never had a global, just cancellation of church services and stuff like that. But I'm definitely going to feel sad, and our family will probably just do the same thing like we usually do after our service, just have a huge meal.
Cool. I like that. Ben, I'm going to go to you with the same question. Being on how, normally you'd be at church on Sunday and we'd be celebrating together, and all the, youth group would be together and all those kind of things. And now that you're going to be at your home, how does that make you feel emotionally? And then what are you going to do to celebrate the resurrection of Christ in your own home?
I'm bummed I'm not going to be able to see the people at church that I usually would on an event like this. Like Ezra, I'm probably going to have a meal with my family. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a bummer to not be able to see everyone.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I know that we'll all gather together around the world, and there'll be plenty of online services, and I'm sure somebody will come up with some kind of special, online thing that we can all join, a Zoom call or something, so we can all still celebrate. I know for us personally at our church, we're going to do something cool with all the high schoolers and probably some middle schoolers and things like that as well. So that's going to be super cool. Now, Matt, what about you? What's going to be your plan for Easter? How are you handling that emotion of not being with your brothers and sisters in Christ and celebrating actually at a church or somewhere like that, and just being at home?
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if my family actually forgets that it's Easter, just because the perception of time during this whole thing is just really weird. You never know what day it is. Time doesn't matter anymore. The whole celebration thing with the church community is going to be weird because we've been finding ways to do it recently with like we've been doing like the live streams on YouTube and like Zoom calls and stuff like that. But I hope we can do something cool with the church community, because I'm definitely gonna try to do something with my family, but like do something with the church community as well.
No, absolutely. I love it. And, I'm right there with you guys. You know what I mean? I'm definitely sad and a little bit frustrated, I guess, that we're not going to be able to really celebrate this monumental event. I really look forward to this every year. And for me, it's a different kind of, I don't know, I come into it that not only is it the resurrection of Christ, but it's my day to kind of serve other people that would come to church that don't normally come to church, right? So it's my opportunity to meet some new people, maybe, share my story and with them and invite them into, kind of our church or our home, as we like to call it, to celebrate this day. And not only do I get to usually meet at least a couple new people, but it's also my way to give back to the church, and I like to set up chairs early for this service because there's so many more people and help break it down or whatever that's going to look like. Every year it differs, but, I love to serve the body of Christ and our church as well, and everything that I can. And so I'm really going to miss that part as well in doing that. But in the same way, I also love that we have this show, and I love that we are able to reach out in the community through the internet and things like that. So I'm sure I'll definitely increase my presence online this next week. And, we'd love to hear from you, all of our listeners. You can email me at chris@one-youth.com. And let us know what you're going to do for Easter at home or how that looks like for your family. And Jimmy, what are you thinking about doing? And I know you got some stuff planned.
I was thinking two thoughts in my head. One is I wonder what Kanye is going to do for Easter. I'm actually genuinely curious because, with his kind of revival year going this year, I'm wondering what exactly that guy's got put together. Probably something epic or big, even in the midst of coronavirus stuff. And here's my other thought, and maybe this is a little irreverent, but is it okay to eat rabbit on Easter, or is that like you don't do that because like Easter bunny like craziness?
Whoa, that's a tough question right there, my friend.
Yeah, I don't eat rabbit often, I don't, but sometimes you can, and there's a great butcher around our parts up here where you can get pretty much any kind of animal you want, seems like. So I don't know, man. My family probably, like in all seriousness though, my family is going to gather around and we'll probably talk to some of the extended family online. And we'll celebrate. It's an interesting thing, the whole Easter deal, because we celebrate something that we know has already happened. Mm-hmm. Jesus is already alive, still is alive. And every year we celebrate it. We don't want to forget that. But another part of it, too, is it's also Passover. And Passover is a celebration that we are not caught up in our own sin and destruction, that there is a Passover lamb, and that is Jesus, who died for our sin, for our transgressions, our mistakes. And so there's a celebration of that fact, too, that Easter brings with us. And so there's something cool about just being able to sit in that reality that we've been forgiven. And so that's just something I like to do. And I know all sorts of people have all sorts of different traditions. I probably won't be dressing up this year like I did when I was a little kid, though.
Well, Jimmy, I will tell you that according to all preferences around the country, and even those vegans and animal lover worshipers, that you are allowed to eat chocolate bunnies. So please go ahead and indulge on the chocolate bunny. That's all bets are safe on that one.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for the very politically correct and most delicious answer.
Yes.
So I will do that. I will definitely eat some form of chocolate.
And I will join you, my friend. All right, to wrap up the show, because I think we're coming to the end of our time here. You know what? We're going to go around. We are coming to the end of Lent as well, Jamie. And remember, we did have a couple of these guys on the show when we had our Lent episode, and they made promises to God and to all of our listeners around the world that they were going to stay tight to one or a couple things that they were going to do. So, Ezra.
My promise was that I would stop having or like thinking about what other people are thinking about me whenever like I'm at school or something. And I guess it's definitely been easier because we're in quarantine and the only people we can really see are our families. But like during the midst of like this whole COVID-19 coronavirus thing, like it's kind of taken my mind off. Like I didn't really think about Lent until like you brought it up this morning. So like, I mean, I guess I'm in a way like kind of fulfilling my promise, but like in an accidental way that I didn't even like realize I was doing it because of the quarantine.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it might be, like Chris is saying, it might be accidental, but it's not accidental, right? Like God maybe is doing something in that. I did want to point something out on the first episode. We also said maybe that you were gonna let Matt be your stylist. I'm wondering if that happened at all. Matt, did you choose any outfits for Ezra during this time?
I wish that we followed through on that, but I mean, half of the time he was just in his house anyway, so it didn't really matter.
You know, there's still time. You could tell Ezra what he needs to wear for Easter.
Yeah, I think we should make up for it for the last week.
Great idea, Matt. And then make sure and post that, please, on the Instagram account, because we would love to see what you picked out for him. Matt, what was your other thing that you were going to do for Lent?
For me, I think I said I was going to limit my phone usage because it was impairing my ability to get my schoolwork done. And I was actually going pretty well for a while. I was like still using a lot, but like definitely using it less than I would. Then when we got sent home and we've just been home, like especially for the first week, like I was on my phone so much because I just had nothing to do because we didn't have class. So like, I don't know, I was just on my phone like all the time, and I kind of still am. So it's definitely gone back up. Unfortunately, I don't think I did very well.
The other good thing too is that you have we all got a week left still, right? We've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to kind of pick something that we want to do. You know, there's still some time, which is kind of cool. So, you know, I think Chris, you've taught this to me. Remind me of this. Is, you know, we've got today, right? We've got this day. We've got. We don't know if we have tomorrow, and yesterday already happened. So like we have today, and today we can do something. So for anyone out there too who's like, oh man, Lent, I let that go. Don't feel weird or guilty or shameful about it. What you should probably do is pick something that you can do today and put that into practice. Chris, man, I'm curious. You started this thing off at the beginning before maybe we started recording, and you're like, man, I have victory. You've had a good season. If I remember it right, you were going to give up punk rock music. So let us know how that's going.
You know what, Jamie? Thanks for bringing that up. And, you know, I'm happy to report that I have continued to give up punk rock music for this entire time of Lent. And it has not been easy. I'll tell you, but, you know, what I found that really helped me out is that I added an extra hour of prayer, of meditation, of reading the scriptures, doing some devotional work, and, you know, and I feel great, you know, and I'm a little bit anxious, honestly, for next week when this comes to an end, and I'm going to reintroduce that back into my life. But, you know, the other cool thing about this that I just want to mention is that even though I gave up the music, I also have been connecting with a lot of my friends and fellow like musicians that are in the punk rock scene across the world because of the coronavirus. And I don't know if I've been more spiritual, but I felt more spiritual in our relationships, right? And like the things that are going back, like I've really been able to be there as a messenger of God's word for them. And not all, you know, most of them aren't Christians or aren't believers. And in this time of kind of chaos, I've been able to bring peace into their lives. So it's just kind of cool how God makes things work, right? Like you said, you plant that little mustard seed of faith that we always talk about, and how it just kind of takes off and it turns into something we never even would have imagined that was even possible. So I don't know. I'm killing it in the Lent game right now. I feel good about it.
Well, congratulations for killing it in the Lent game. I don't know if I've heard that phrase before, but
probably
I'm
not.
glad someone's killing it in the Lent game.
Which means that God is killing it in me, right? Because I don't do anything on my own. That's for sure. So, but yeah, that has been cool. Well, listen, I want to thank you guys for being on the show today. As always good insight. Thanks for your positive messages and your honesty and your vulnerability and talking about what's going on in your lives and sharing it with all of the people that tune in from around the world. I know definitely we want to wish everybody a great Easter week. And, in this time of kind of chaos and disruption, you know what I mean? Always remember, there is one that we go to. That one is God. May you find him now. And hopefully, we can hear some great stories. Like I said, if you guys want to send us some emails or anything like that about what's been going on with you, wherever you live, and about how your faith has increased or been tested, either way, we would love to hear them. Jamie, what are you thinking right now? Give us a great message to send out to everybody.
I think the message that everyone out there needs to hear is that God loves you and wants to be with you. And I want everyone out there to know that. It doesn't matter whether you did Lent or not. Doesn't matter how you celebrate Easter. Doesn't matter if you feel like you've been successful this season or not. That God is close. And not to forget that fact. So I just want everyone out there to remember that God is close to you wherever you are, no matter how isolated you feel, or no matter how difficult your circumstances are. The Lord is near.
Absolutely. I love that message. Thank you so much. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for tuning into this show. Thanks to all my guests. And thank you, Jamie. And most of all, thank you to our producer, Patrick. We have a hard enough time in the studio, but especially doing this all on Zoom. So, Patrick, thank you for all your hard work. We hope everybody has a safe and healthy week. And as always, the One Amazing Life podcast will be back next week. Take care. God bless.